There is a moment inside every collapse where the collapsing stops, where everything that was falling has finished falling, and the noise of it has settled, and what remains is just a person standing inside the wreckage of something that used to be intact. That moment is not dramatic. It does not look the way falling apart looks in the imagination of people who have not yet been through it. It is quieter than that. More still, almost peaceful in a way that is difficult to explain without sounding like someone who has not understood the severity of what just happened. I understood the severity, but I also understood something else in that stillness. Something that arrived not despite the falling apart, but because of it. A clarity that only becomes available when everything you had been holding together finally releases all at once, and your hands are suddenly empty, and the question of what you are going to do with them next is the only question left. My name is Sheikh Hamdan, and the promise I made to myself in that stillness is the most important promise I have ever kept. The day itself was not marked by any single catastrophic moment. That is a thing about days when everything falls apart. They rarely contain one clean break. They contain an accumulation of smaller breakings that have been building for long enough that when the final one arrives, it does not feel like a surprise. It feels like an arrival, like something that has been traveling toward you for a very long time has finally closed the distance. I had known on some level that this day was coming, had felt it approaching in the particular way you feel weather before it arrives. And yet, knowing it was coming had not made me adequately prepare for what it would feel like to be standing inside it when it finally did. I made the promise in the early hours of the morning after, when the night had not yet finished and the day had not yet committed to beginning, and the space between them belonged entirely to me and to whatever I was going to decide to do with what had just happened. I made it without ceremony, without writing it down or saying it out loud or marking it in any way that would have made it feel formal or witnessed. It was entirely internal, entirely private, made to the version of myself that was sitting in that particular darkness, asking the only question that darkness at that hour ever really asks: who are you going to be now? The promise was not about her, not about what had ended or what I had lost or what I intended to do differently in the chapters that came after. It was about something more fundamental than any of that. I promised myself that I would never again confuse composure with strength, that I would stop treating my own vulnerability as something requiring management rather than something deserving honesty. That the next time someone I loved needed me to be fully present, I would choose presence over everything else reaching for my attention in that moment. That I would ask more than I assumed, listen more than I performed listening, and show up completely rather than adequately. It was a simple promise, the kind that sounds almost too ordinary to be significant. But I have learned that the most important promises are always the simple ones, because simple promises have nowhere to hide when you break them.